Hello everyone, thank you for joining me again and welcome to any new viewers. This is To The Point English with Ben. I'm Ben, and as you can see I have a very special video for you today because I have a very special guest, my old man. Hello Dad.
Hi Ben, alright?
Very well, thanks. Thank you for doing this.
That's alright.
And the reason I wanted to interview my dad in particular today is because he is a Cockney. So I thought it would be interesting for all of you to find out exactly what is a Cockney. We're going to learn a bit about the accent, the Cockney accent. It's a very particular British English accent. And also later we're going to talk about Cockney rhyming slang. I think we should start by defining what is a Cockney, because, I mean, my dad is technically a Cockney because, can you explain to everyone what exactly a Cockney is?
To be classified a Cockney, you have to be born within a certain distance of a particular church, a church of Bow Bells. It had Bow Bells. And as long as you were in the sound of that area when you were born, then you're classed as a Cockney. And it's a very particular area in the East End of London. So when I was born very close to it, and therefore I'm classed as a Cockney.
Yeah, so it's the bells of this church in the East End of London. They ring out, and if you were born within that sound, so if you could technically hear the Bow Bells in that area, then you were officially a Cockney. A bit of extra information regarding London. It's very clearly divided, the north and south. The Thames, the River Thames, divides the north and south. People often say, are you from North London or South London? Also East and West. East and West London are very different. East London, where my dad was born, the East End of London is very working class. West London is generally a richer, more a wealthier area, and it's got a lot to do with the accent too. I mean, it's very difficult for people outside of London to distinguish between sort of West London and East London, the Cockney accent, because a lot of people just understand the London accent.
My accent isn't as strong as a lot of Cockneys. When I was a youngster, being brought up in the East End of London, my mum wouldn't allow me to speak real Cockney because it wouldn't have gone down well at school. So she made me speak a more correct English. But nevertheless, people around me in the shops and the markets were all speaking with a Cockney accent. So therefore I picked it up quite a bit.
But we can't speak about Cockney without speaking about Cockney rhyming slang. It's basically a type of slang where you use a phrase and one of the words in the phrase rhymes, is replacing a normal word, but it rhymes with the word that you are really referring to. So it's difficult to understand what the speaker is actually referring to, but the word rhymes. Sorry to interrupt, but that was a confusing explanation. Let's see if we can do better. The construction of rhyming slang involves replacing a common word with a phrase of two or more words, the last of which rhymes with the original word. So, Dad, can you give us an example of Cockney rhyming slang?
I'll give you one of the examples that most people know and recognise as Cockney rhyming slang. One of the most common phrases is apples and pears, which stands for stairs because it rhymes. But the whole language is very deep. There are things like Ruby Murray. Now, Ruby Murray is a curry. So you might say to your mate, do you fancy coming down the road for a ruby? And he'd either say yes or no. He might even say, yeah, we'll go down in my jam jar, which means we'll nip down in the car because it rhymes. And there's a couple of examples.
Yeah, funny, the apple and pears one, because I always remember when my sister and I were kids, my mum and dad, my dad used to say, go up, it was time to go to bed, and they say, go up the apple and pears and wash your boat race. And that's another one. Boat race means face. But as my dad was explaining there, often we don't say the whole phrase. So Ruby Murray, she was a famous singer, right?
Yeah,
in the
back in the 1920s, I think.
1920s.
Before, I don't know.
But Ruby Murray, so Murray rhymes with curry, so the curry is the Indian food. So, but most people wouldn't usually say Ruby Murray. They would just say, do you fancy going for a ruby? Would you like to go for a ruby? So that means curry. A Ruby Murray is a curry, so going to an Indian restaurant to have that type of food, a specific type of food. And yeah, the other example, jam jar, would you often say just jam?
I think in that case you would say jam jar because it goes together. I think I said, oh, you might go with your mate. And then you would call your mate my old China, which is my old China plate mate. So it spreads right through the language. It crops up in all different sorts of places.
Again, it's not clear what the origins of Cockney rhyming slang are, but it's from a couple of 100 years ago. But curiously, this new rhyming slang is being invented in modern times. For example, we often say, it's all gone Pete Tong. Now, Pete Tong was a DJ, I think he still is a DJ. He played sort of dance music, techno music, I think. But when you say it's all gone Pete Tong, you mean it's all gone wrong. So it's a disaster. Oh no, it's all gone Pete Tong. That's just in the last 20 years probably, or maybe 25 or 30 years.
Certainly wasn't one that I used as a kid. That never cropped up.
Pete Tong didn't exist. He wasn't alive. So, but the origin. Speaking about the origin, what is your understanding of the origin of?
Well, I understand. Well, I came across it mainly in the markets and in the shops, but because I lived about a quarter of a mile from the docks in the East End of London, West India Docks, East India Docks, it was the dockers, the people that worked in the docks, that used the slang most of all. Because
so just to explain the docks, it's the area sort of in London, in many places, where the ships would load and offload their cargo, their products. So in London, it's a big area and a very important area. A lot of people working in that area in the East End of London. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it. Because I lived in that area, a lot of the people down the road where I lived, down the Old Frog, which is Frog and Toad Road, used to work in the docks, and they used to use it because they didn't necessarily want their bosses, the owners, to know of what they're talking about. They might be wanting to talk about something that was maybe a little bit naughty, not really naughty, but a little bit naughty. So they'd keep it away from the bosses by talking slang.
So only they could understand it. Only those people who knew Cockney rhyming slang would understand it. Yeah, because I've heard that it was for criminals to plan their crimes without the police understanding, but yeah, that's another theory. It's all of it. It's probably a mixture of all of it.
Evolved over hundreds of years, I should think, but mainly in the working class area of the East End, because they wanted to keep things to themselves. It was a very tight-knit community.
It's very important. I mean, it's still alive today. We use this Cockney rhyming slang a lot. People from London, not only Cockneys, but people all over England, really, but mostly from London, use Cockney rhyming slang today. So this is not a dead slang. It's very alive and well today. Having said that, I don't recommend that you, as English learners as a second language, I don't think you should try to learn. You shouldn't worry about it too much. It's interesting, it's a curiosity, and it's good to know about the culture, English culture, and the culture of the language. But unless you're very familiar with the rhyming slang, I wouldn't recommend you use it, especially not in Cambridge English exams, which many of you are preparing for. So yeah, I think that was it. Have you got any more examples? Or?
I talked about Ruby Murray, didn't I?
Yeah, when we finish this video, we're going to have a cup of Rosie Lee, by the way.
Yeah, Rosie Lee, yeah.
Can you guess what Rosie Lee is? It's Rosie Lee tea, so a cup of... Often we just say, would you like a cup of Rosie? Would you fancy a cup of Rosie? Right? We don't always say Rosie Lee.
I might say to Ben, your barnet is looking good today. And what would that mean?
Well,
Barnet Fair.
Barnet Fair.
There's a place on the outskirts of London, Barnet. Used to have a fair there. Barnet Fair rhymes with hair, so Ben's hair is looking pretty good today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, again, thank you for doing this, Dad. I think
it's a pleasure. Yeah, it's good.
Hopefully you've all found it interesting and useful. Yeah, I don't think we can finish with any Cockney rhyming slang.
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but we'll see you again, the old China.
All right, thank you for joining us, and yeah, we'll see you soon. I'll see you soon for another video. Take care. Bye.
See ya.